All right, here's how this is going to go, guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. So, we have 10 official in the house assistant coaches now.
It's
The
about
staff
time.
is set. Staff is set. We do this every single year, and for the first time, we're going to have four of us talk about this. And then what I'm going to do is while we give our rankings, I want you to give your rankings as well, guys. And we're gonna start at 10, work our way down to one, and then we're gonna do a consensus. We're gonna do mine, Chris's, Aaron's, and JR's, and then we're gonna do one for the chat. So whoever the chat mentions the most for that ranking, we're going to add that as well. And then we're going to come up with a consensus of 10 through 1 on the assistant coaches. And I didn't give you guys any like how to rank them. You could do like most important to best to whatever criteria you want to use. For me personally, I take into account importance, recruiting, and player development. And I kind of look at those three things, and that's how I come up with the ranking in my head. I throw experience in that as well. I think experience is important. So in the chat tonight, I want you guys to participate with this as well. We're going to start at number 10, work our way down to the number one ranked assistant in our mind. Who wants to go first in this little experiment tonight?
I'll go first.
All right, we'll just go JR, Aaron, Chris, then me, and just go number 10. Who's number 10? Your reason why. And then, Aaron, you can jump in after JR gives his number 10.
Right on.
All right, number 10, Chip Kelly. I'm just kidding. No, number 10 for me is Keenan Bailey, tight ends coach. I think he's an okay recruiter, but at the end of the day, he's not really done that much. And I don't know. He seems to me like he's one of those young guys that just like kind of tries to be friends with the players. And I don't really have any hard and fast evidence on that. And so, yeah, for me, there's been nothing spectacular he's done. So I'll go with Keenan Bailey at number 10.
I went with I don't know how to say his last name, uncultured swine. So I'll say Matty G. I think he's the new
McNamara.
safety. Yeah, sure, dude. The the new safeties coach, I believe he is, and that's just because to me, somewhat of an unproven commodity.
All
All
right,
right, for
Aaron.
me, I actually kind of went and I agreed with Jr. There. I had went with Keenan Bailey, and the big thing is I think he's got a lot of potential, but at this point, I think he's still unproven. He's a young guy, not very much experience yet. Ask me again in a couple of years, and I may change it. But right now, I've got Keenan Bailey at number 10.
Number 10 for me is Justin Fry.
Wow.
Uh huh. Um, when people are calling for you to be fired, there's a reason for that. Now, Ryan Day fired everybody we wanted to except for maybe Justin Fry. And I think Justin Fry has the most, out of all of these coaches on this list, has the most to prove this year. Now, I also believe that Justin Fry has a ton of potential of having a really good season for two reasons. Number one, almost the entire offensive line is returning. And that's important. You got one more year experience with everybody. Number two, a little birdie has told me that over at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center this week, when Chip Kelly arrived, Chip Kelly took Ryan Day's playbook and said, "This is good, but I can make it better." And Ryan Day said, "Please do." And Chip Kelly basically sat down with Justin Fry and said, sat down with Justin Fry and Tony Alford and said, we're going to run this football, and I'm not afraid to use the triple option if we need to." And there's rumors floating around that Ohio State might be running a little bit of triple option in the run game this year. Now, I say all that to say this. That's all sounds great and dandy, and I if it works, awesome, fantastic. But if the offensive line doesn't block, I don't give a rat's butt what we're running. Whether we're running triple option, whether we're I formation, whether we're in the pistol or in the shotgun running read option, I don't care. If the offensive line doesn't learn how to make holes for these running backs, it's for naught. So for me, Justin Fry is at number 10 with the caveat that he by the end of the year could be way up higher on this list, but you got to show me some. I'm like the Missouri state of Missouri. Show me this year. I want to see it.
Can we
Uh,
not say Missouri?
Yeah, that was. Let's
you know
not go
what?
there.
They kicked our butts, dude. So
Yeah, but we don't have to celebrate it.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, Eric. We might run triple option this season because Will Howard's able to.
right,
Do we have a quarterback for 2025 that can do that?
Aaron
Because
Nola,
saying he's not a runner,
Julian Sane,
he's not a runner either.
They both have enough athleticism to do it.
Will
Dude, we
Will
broke
Will
down those films. They're not
Will,
runners.
Will Howard wasn't either, and then all of a sudden he became one.
The only thing I'll say about Will Howard is that one of the reasons why he can be a runner is because he has the body to do it. Julian Sane doesn't have the body, and Aaron Nolan, at least right now, they don't have the body like to be able to take those hits and withstand those.
But the other
So I
thing
see
is,
what
I
you're
think
saying,
if they
but
do run that triple option, it's more a change of pace or a goal line package. It's not something we're going to see on every play.
No, it's
So it's
not
not something I
becoming the
think we have to
emphasis
worry
of our
about
offense. It
being,
never,
the key of the offense.
the triple option never would be the emphasis of the offense given Ryan Day's playbook. I'm
I
just
hope not.
saying that Chip Kelly is not afraid to throw that wrinkle into the offense. It sounds like, and
But I
so
think
that's
if we get the triple option, it'll be more of instead of like handoff, run, or pitch, it'll be more like the run pass option where
Yeah,
like
it's going to be an
it's
RPO.
going to be an RPO, and then if Will Howard decides to take it, then he can dump it off to a Emeka Ibuka or somebody like that. So it's not like your traditional what Navy runs.
right. Let me well,
But
Right. Yeah.
let me throw this little formation. Aaron, you're gonna love this. And by the way, in the chat, guys, let me know who number 10 is. I need to know who you all think is the 10th best coach. You've got in the backfield, you got Howard under center. In the backfield, you've got Junkins and you've got Henderson. Okay? You send the tight end in motion to the other side of the line. When you snap the ball, you have one running back going that way, fake handoff, Howard peels off, and you have the option going the other way. Oregon ran that a bunch when Chip Kelly was the head coach for the Ducks, and it was uber successful. If they just had 10 plays off that formation with those two guys in the backfield, to me, it's worth it. Aaron, do you agree?
Under those circumstances, that would be worth it. You have those two running backs. You have those two running backs, and then Jelani Thurman at tight end or whoever else we might have in there. Yeah, that's something worth looking at. I think you're right, and you're right. I think now that I think about it, as long as it's not the crux of the offense, I think we'll be just fine.
This is the little bit of Frank a little bit. It sounds like it might remind him a little bit of the package that Ryan Day had in
Yeah.
the red zone with Devin Brown. Yeah, it does. It was similar. I don't, but why make it just a red zone thing when you got two horses like that you can mix up
Exactly.
into the backfield? Like
Right.
every now and then bust it out. I think it would be something for these defenses to look at and think about on film. All right,
Bingo.
so we only Jr. said Keenan Bailey, Aaron said Matt Guerreri, Chris has got Keenan Bailey, I got Justin Fry. Jr. number 9.
Well, I was really close to going with Justin Fry at number 9, but just because he hasn't proven himself, and I think that Justin Fry has been more accomplished in his coaching career, I'm going to go with Matt Guerriere.
Matt Gooey.
See, I'm not the
Matt
only
Gooey.
one. Thank you, Jr.
Guerreri.
Well, it just you look at it, he's not proven. Like, and I wanted to try and like give him credit for Caleb Downs, but let's be honest, that was Tim Walton. There was nothing Matt did.
Right.
Like Matt might have been along for the ride, but like
He was
didn't-
navigation.
Yeah, he didn't land Caleb Downs. That was Tim Walton.
But I will say this: Matt was the co-defensive coordinator at Indiana last year, so
And
he's
Justin
got
Fry was the offensive coordinator at UCLA, I think, when they had their really good run offense.
He was. You are correct.
Yeah.
That was my big thing.
Touche.
Yeah.
Good call.
IU's defense sucked.
I was going to say, how good were they really?
But no, I did think of that, Eric, and I thought that was another piece. That was another reason why I had him above Keenan Bailey.
Dre and Junkins got to find a 50-50 split along with getting the ball outside to Emeka and the rest of the wide receiver corps. Absolutely, Derek. I would agree with you 100% on that comment.
Yeah.
And in the future, there's going to be a lot of talk, especially around spring ball, on how we're going to spread the ball with these running backs. Like what's the run count should be for these guys, along with how many touches these wide receivers should be getting. Ed Rogers says he has James Laurinaitis at number 9. I don't think that
Hmm.
that's necessarily a bad place for him, and I'll explain why in just a little bit. But Aaron, who's your number 9?
I had Keenan Bailey there, and it's honestly he could have been 10th. My 9 and 10 were pretty much interchangeable for the same reasons, just unproven commodities. So I'm going to go Keenan Bailey. Again, he's a tight ends coach. He hasn't really. I don't know that he's really done anything of note per se. So that's my reasoning.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Me and Jr. are starting to sound a whole lot like you and I normally do on these lists, Eric, because
Right.
I had the G-Man there at 9 as well. But again, it was just an unproven commodity thing, I think, in my opinion. Would have easily put could have easily put Fry in there. Um, Jr. I'm going to tell you now, if you got Fry next, then we're in lockstep again. But okay,
You and me, buddy.
Number 9 for me was Keenan Bailey, and for a lot of the reasons you guys mentioned. But I do think Keenan Bailey. Do you think he's going to be the special teams coach, Jr.?
No, it's gonna be Matt Greer. And
Matt is
James
going to.
Laurinaitis will help some too.
Oh, okay. So outside of doing tight ends, what else is he doing? That's it.
Tight ends. And he's like a big recruiting piece for the offense too. He takes on a lot of the stuff that like GAs and stuff would do, not necessarily because the GAs can't do it, but because he was really, really good at it. And so they want him to kind of like mentor the current GAs and analysts and stuff like that into
so
that
he's the
role.
staff gopher, is what you're telling us.
Pretty much.
Ed
Which
Rogers
every
is
staff needs it, so I'm not saying it's a bad role.
Ed Rogers has got James Laurinaitis at 9. Nick Quint's got Keenan Bailey at 9. And Derek has got James Laurinaitis. As much as I like the guy, James is unproven, and who has James recruited?
Well, he stole us a linebacker from Notre Dame.
They're coming, is
Yes,
what I'm
I have no
hearing.
doubt.
I am
Just wait.
hearing that he's doing well, and Aaron and I we've got we're going to be doing our border wars here coming up, and the number 5 recruit in the state of Ohio is Justin Hill, and that is a must get for Ohio State. He is a linebacker slash defensive end from Cincinnati. He can run like the wind, and he hits hard. Um,
Big
almost
get.
kind of almost kind of like a Troy Polamalu type of safety type of kid with bigger size, and James is all over him. Um, James is all over him. Yeah, I agree, Derek. To be determined. I agree with that, but I have confidence in James. Um, so that brings us to number 8, Jr.
My number 8 was Justin Fry, simply because he was on my list of people that should have been fired at the end of the year. So you don't get much lower than that, because what he did in the whatever bowl it was against those stupid Tigers or whoever they were, Mizzou, Missouri, whatever you want to call them, yeah, you cannot just switch 2 offensive linemen like that and it be going terribly. And, people just say, oh, oopsie daisies, it happened. No, this is Ohio State. You don't let that happen. And if it does happen, you yank that guy out of there and you put the other guy right back in there. If there was kind of some suspension for Carson, Hinsman, whatever. If there was something for him, you should have came out and told us, because all it does is make Justin Fry look stupid for putting Matthew Jones at center, who didn't know the calls, who was, everybody knew when the ball was going to be snapped because of the way he was putting his head up and down, up and down. Everybody knew. And Hero Canoe couldn't block air. So, yeah, Justin Fry.
Nick Quint, you got to give me your reason why you have Tim Walton at number 8. I want to see what your reasoning for that is.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 8 for you, Aaron.
I'm going to go, and I'm going James Laurinaitis. And it's just because, again, he has yet to do anything. It's no disrespect or nothing down on him. I'm on the to be determined train, but I'm trying to give him credit where credit's due. He had a heck of an NFL career, and who doesn't want to play for a guy that had the career that he had. He's also hot on the recruiting trail, so I'm sticking him at number 8 for right now.
Yeah, I've got Justin Fry at 8. Like I said, I, he's not done a whole heck of a lot since he got to Ohio State to impress. I thought he should have been fired at the end of last season. Um, so I had him in at 8.
Uh, at 8 for me is the little animal James Laurinaitis. So I feel like this is a good slot to slide him in to say this is maybe out of all the people I have on this list, the most potential I've given somebody. And you would think someone who's never been an assistant coach before should be 10, that he's an unproven commodity, but I have a lot of faith in James Laurinaitis.
Yes.
So that's why I gave him 8. And I would not be surprised if then when we do this, say in 2025, he's not knocking on the door of being in the middle and hearing I know Bobby Carpenter believes, I listen to him on the fan on my way to work every day. Bobby Carpenter believes James Laurinaitis is your future defensive coordinator at Ohio State. That's going to be the next DC after Jim Knowles retires.
I
That's
wouldn't
his
be
belief.
surprised.
Chris Smith says Walton is recruiting better than anyone, including Heartline. At this moment,
He's right.
it's
They're close.
one A and one B, right? Like I don't know
Yep.
how you distinction between the two. They're both bringing in 5-star talent left and right. Derek Dennis, number 8 for him is Fry. O line was awful. Fryer isn't a tackle, and moving Hinsman was an awful move. Exactly. That's why I have him at number 10. Um, Nick Quint, my mistake though. Then Chris, I didn't know that. I retract my statement. Just didn't know if all of his responsibilities are catching up with assistant head coach and secondary and cornerback coach. No problem, Nick. Um, whoever sent Tommy out against Michigan should be fired. Ed Rogers says. Ouch.
Oof.
Ed bringing some thunder there. He was not ready to play that game. He was still hurt.
No, he was hurt still.
Yep.
I think it was a lack of faith in what they had behind him. That they
Yeah,
thought a hurt Tommy was better than a healthy whatever at that point.
healthy
Uh,
Cody, healthy CJ Hicks.
Cody played, but yeah, yeah. Okay, on to number 7, Jr.
My number 7 is James Laurinaitis, and one of the reasons why I have him higher is because I do think that just and all these guys that I've had under him haven't really been recruiters, and they have detractors, but they don't really have anything with them that stands out with what they've done. James Laurinaitis has been pseudo coaching the linebackers, guys like Tommy and Steele that I thought got better since he was here, even though he wasn't technically the linebacker coach. We know he was working with them a lot. And the other piece of it too is I gave Justin Fry credit for being an O-line or an offensive coordinator. I gave Matt Guerriere for being a co-defensive coordinator. James Laurinaitis played in the National Football League for a really long time and was a team captain, leading tackler for the Rams, all these things. I don't know if you get more accomplished than that. And I know not everybody says, play translates to coaching, but I think when you're that good on the field, it's got to translate somewhat.
Yeah, I agree with everything JR said, but my number 7 is Justin Fry, and it's because of all the things JR said earlier about him. I mean, when he was at UCLA, he was an OC. They had a pretty solid season. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that really, I guess, manifest here in Columbus quite yet. They haven't been absolutely terrible, but they also haven't been anywhere near the standard we're used to seeing. So I'm trying to give him this last year, and then I am done with Justin Fry. I would have liked to have seen him fired this year, but since he wasn't, we have to give him the benefit of the doubt for one more season because we have to. Here we are. That's my justification for him being at number 7.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got the little animal at number 7. I've got a lot of faith in this kid. I think he's going to be in the top 5, or at least knocking on the door of 5 uh, when we do this next year. But right now, still unproven. But I think he's got a lot of irons in the fire. I think talent's coming. I think that we're going to see an intensity that we haven't seen in the linebacker room in a while. I'm very pumped to have this kid. So I've got him at 7. And by the way, Aaron, the only thing we have to do is die and pay taxes. We don't have to give anybody another chance. All right.
We don't even have to pay taxes if you're willing to do that time, I suppose. I did mine today, by the way. If any
Uh-oh.
from
Amish
the old
internet.
FBI's Amish
Don't
internet.
worry.
I did my taxes to anybody
No,
that works for the IRS. I
don't
did them today.
don't worry, Aaron. They didn't hear any of that. Neither do we.
Excellent.
Derek Dennis says
Excellent.
Guerrera is
I'm
his
gonna.
number 7. If your track record is coaching at Indiana, they haven't been a powerhouse. He only coached there 1 year. His track record is coaching under Jim Knowles. He's followed Jim Knowles around. He's Jim Knowles' predecessor. And the Indiana defense actually improved this past year. So just throwing that out there. I don't think anyone was brave enough to tell Tommy Two Thumbs he wasn't going to play against TTU, and said Brian Oberst. That's a good point.
That's possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nick Quint, I want to see a prove it year for James. He's been promoted, and want to see what he's going to do to repay the gratitude. Yes. All right. So, interestingly enough, guys, we all had the same 4 from 10 through 7. Now, we had different orders. And so, because of that, here's who we have as a group at number 10. We have Keenan Bailey at number 10, Matt Guerreri at 9. We have Justin Fry at 8, and James Laurinaitis at 7 when you take the consensus of all of ours.
Chris, you and I, we're just so smart, dude.
You know, yeah, great minds think alike. And, well, there's Eric and Aaron.
Yeah.
And one
It's
of us
okay.
has
You guys
done
can join our
taxes, and the
club,
other
too.
one has not. So,
Boom.
all right, number 6, JR.
All right, I'm going to do it. And I know people are going to be mad about it, and that's okay. But it's time for us to realize he's coming to the end of his career. We love who he was, and he's still very good. But Larry Johnson at number 6. He's come to the end of his career. It's getting a little bit harder for him to recruit with all the negatives around him. And from everything I'm hearing, he's not exactly lockstep with Jim Knowles, and he's kind of doing his own thing. And at the end of the day, I love Larry Johnson, but he's 6 for me.
Same. I actually went LJ as well, and I'm not saying that he's necessarily lost a step, but maybe he's starting to think about wrapping it up here in his career. So I'm gonna stick with LJ at 6.
You know, I went that same route, and my thought was this: we haven't seen true greatness out of that defensive line since Chase Young.
That's
We
true.
are really, though we've had the 5-star recruits there, we haven't seen them living up to, I think, what their full potential is consistently. And unfortunately, that's got to fall on Larry Johnson at this point. So I went with Larry Johnson at 6 as well.
Have we seen true greatness in the backfield since J.K. Dobbins?
No. And
That's
that's,
why
I'll tell you what, I had 6 and 7, or 5 and 6, Eric.
I have Tony Alford
Yeah.
at number 6 for me.
What did it for me that would push me over the edge there, though, Eric, was the fact that we did get Judkins come in this year.
Yes.
True, but I don't know how much of that was Tony Alford.
I don't
that-
either, but the fact is, it's his
I
room.
think that had more to do with the 1870s society and the foundation myself, but
I don't disagree completely, but it's his room, and we'll never know. So
all right, let's see what you guys have to say tonight about this subject. Here we go. Frank, you guys are right on with LJ. Isn't that crazy, though? If you would have said this 2 to 3 years ago, I'd call you nuts.
yeah.
Something else. Did you guys know Larry Johnson's son's on the staff as
Yes.
a GA?
Yes. I think I saw an article maybe about that, about him being hired.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. Brian Oberst, Larry Johnson has been great for a long time, but age might be catching up with him. Derek Vance has Johnson at number 6. My understanding is Knowles' defense doesn't depend on getting pressure from the ends. He uses a lot of, I would say, exotic looks from those hybrid defensive end / linebackers that he could move around to get pressure. He ran a lot of 3-man fronts where that 4th defensive lineman could have been a linebacker and made a 3-3 front, or could have been a defensive end and made a 4-4-2 front. and he moved them around. And with Larry Johnson, there's been none of that cowboy position because Larry Johnson wants 4 down linemen every
Well,
play.
well, the other side to this too is on third down, we were going after the quarterback just about every time. Okay, we still weren't getting home. So that,
Yeah.
regardless of how you want to, word this or describe this defense, we weren't getting there regardless.
Nick Quint, how do you think LJ is going to do with his son as an analyst?
I don't even
I
know
don't
if they'll
know.
cross
I don't think
paths.
it matters. Yeah.
I don't think it does either.
We'll have to dig into that a little bit more. Hopefully, someone from the media is smart enough to ask that question when they have access to LJ. Tony Alford could be on a tightrope, says Brian Oberst. Do you guys agree or disagree?
It feels like he's been on a tightrope for a while. Because
Yeah.
it's like he recruits well every like 2 to 3 years, and then he just
Yes.
does crap, and it's like what is happening?
Yeah, it's like he goes every other cycle with good running backs,
Yes.
which is okay as long as they
And
hit
that
early.
makes sense if you think about it in a lot of
It
ways to these kids
yes,
because they know they're going to have to sit a year if they come to Ohio State because they've got a great running back waiting in front of them. I can see that it lacking off a little bit every other cycle. But you know what? I think we take a big drop. That's the thing. It's not, you're not dropping from a 5 star to the top of the 4 star list. We're taking a hit and we're going a little further down each time.
So I
Yeah, just real quick. Bottom of the fifth, USC 2, Ohio State 2. If I'm watching baseball over on my other computer screen, by the way. Just give that a little update for you. I'm great. I'm nuts, aren't I? Also watched Ohio State hockey sweep the Badgers this weekend. Go, JR.
I just real quick because I know we gotta go through the rest of the list. I I will defend Tony Alford uh, to the point that he has remained bringing in good recruits. He brought in Travion Henderson since J.K. Dobbins, who obviously very highly touted recruit. He brought in Dallin Hayden, who has been excellent the entire time he's been here. He's just had really good players in front of him. And he just brought in James People, who was one of, if not the top recruit in Texas. So going down there, nabbing him, and also too, I think Tony Alford gets some credit for like going 5 men deep at running back the past 2 years, right? I mean, in 2022,
Yeah.
we were running Xavier Johnson at running back sometimes, and
And he did all
last
right.
year,
he did
yeah,
well.
I mean, Dallin Hayden, we had a serious conversation at some point about is Dallin Hayden good enough to be the starter for this team in 22? Dude, guys, that's the third string running back. Like, I I know the flash isn't there, but like, you tell me Justin Fry is going to be on his third string guard and that guard is going to look just as good as the other one? That's not going to happen.
Well, and JR to
But
that point too, you talk about Hayden. I mean, this is a guy who ran for what? Was it almost 700 yards as a true freshman in limited action towards the end of the season
yeah, I
because
think it
of
was almost
injuries?
600. Yeah,
Or almost
yeah,
600? Yeah. I mean, he's
yeah.
got the
So
talent.
I'm not trying to say Tony Alford deserves to be higher because he's actually next on my list.
Yeah,
But
mine
I'm
too.
just saying, like,
Same.
I wouldn't throw him down there in the cellar with the other guys.
All right,
So I'm going to
Tony.
bet this goes Alford, LJ.
I'll say I got
Yes,
Alfred in there.
Yeah, Alfred.
yes.
Yeah,
It's exactly how I have it. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right. Anything else on Tony Alford at number 5 for you guys?
think we covered it.
JR or Chris, are you good?
I'm good.
All right, LJ at number 5 for me. I believe this is going to be a good year for Jack Sawyer and JTT. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards Larry Johnson over Tony Alford. I think maybe taking full career look into that maybe is kind of how maybe I came up with that. But yeah, I just haven't flipped from you guys. All right, so that means we're up to number 4, JR.
Number 4, and it's kind of getting dicey here because all these guys are very, very good, exceptional. But number 4 for me is Jim Knowles. And that's because some of Jim Knowles' decision making, I think that he's done a fantastic job with the defense this past year. But even the year before that, it didn't feel like his decision making with how much he was blitzing, leaving guys out on islands when we didn't have the secondary to be able to do that. And this past year, there were times when I felt like he should have blitzed J.J. McCarthy more, and he didn't. And so for me, there's just like I said, all four of these guys are fantastic. It's just kind of nitpicking at this point, and for me, that's why I have Knowles at 4.
I got Chip Kelly at number 4. And it's just because I like Jim Knowles. And while I don't disagree with everything that JR said, there's some of it that I do. Now, Chip Kelly was a fantastic national championship caliber head coach at Oregon 10, 12 years ago, 13, 14 years ago at this point, now that I think about it. He does a remarkable job, I think, coaching offenses. So I think he's bringing a lot of value to the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about Jim Knowles when we get to him. I'm not going to give that away, but Chip Kelly is my number 4.
JR, I strayed from you here, man.
That's
I'm
okay.
going with Sarge. I got Chip Kelly in here. Chip Kelly, I think. Now, let me make this point. I think that Chip Kelly has the potential to be the most important member of the staff this year. That being said, I've got to see how he meshes, how he actually works with Ryan Day in this role. I've got to see how he does stepping out of that head coach position and taking that step back into a coordinator role. We talked about Chip Kelly when we talked about his hire. What was it 6 years in a row of top 6 offenses between his time as coordinator and head coach at Oregon and his time at UCLA. He had a couple good years with some really bad talent. I think Kelly has the potential to be the most important guy on here. I have to see recruiting out of Kelly. I have to see how he meshes with this group. That's why I've got him at 4.
I have Chip Kelly at number 4. I'm right there with
Oh
you,
my
Aaron
gosh.
and Chris. I believe Chip Kelly can do it. I think he's probably the most significant offseason hire by any program. I mean, we literally took a head coach from a Power 5 school who was building a winning program, and we got him to demote himself to play caller and offensive coordinator. Um, that is significant. So I think I got Chip Kelly at 4th, but I agree with you, Chris. I think he might be the most important assistant coach this season.
If Ryan Day is truly handing over the playbook, if he's letting Chip Kelly actually run the offense, be the head coach of the offense, and if Ryan Day is going to focus on being a true CEO of this team, that he's going to turn out to be the biggest hire of the offseason.
Chip at 4 is pretty spot on as well. We'll need to listen today and realize he's not running the show, said Brian Oberst. Derek Vance, Chip Kelly at Oregon in no way, shape, or form had the weapons like he will have on this offense. You see what he did at Oregon with what he had there. And I can take you one step further than that, Derek, and I say, look at what he did at UCLA with pretty much a group of 5 roster.
Yeah.
And took him to a bowl game. So I think Chip Kelly has a lot to do with that. Now, a lot of people are dogging Chip Kelly for basically how he left UCLA. I heard that UCLA's NIL was under $1 million.
Wow.
Six figures for. There's no way UCLA is going to be able to compete in the Big Ten if their NIL for their football team is
No.
under $1 million. Now, I also know UCLA considers themselves a basketball school. Okay. UCLA is more comparable to Indiana than they are Ohio State. Okay. I get that. I understand that. But my goodness, you can't.
And
How
take a
can.
look at where Indiana football is at right now, Eric.
Exactly. There's no way. There's no way Chip Kelly looked at that situation in UCLA and be like, yeah, this is exactly where I want to be. It was an unobtainable situation, man.
Really
Um,
was.
Yeah, Derek, UCLA didn't do poo in the NIL. They didn't. It was one of very few Power 5 programs that was under $1 million in NIL this past year. All right,
Yeah.
number 3, JR. We need a hustle.
I can't believe you guys made me be the highest on Chip Kelly after somebody who has been the lowest. But my number 3 is Chip Kelly. And just because Chip Kelly has had the experience as a head coach in both college and NFL, Chip Kelly has had the massive experience, year after year, having fantastic offenses, both in college and in the NFL. And so for me, I think that puts him over Jim Knowles in my mind.
I'm going with Jim Knowles. And while JR kind of touched on quite a bit of it, he could have been more aggressive at certain times, certain games. I get it. You know what I mean? Those are all fair. Those are all completely fair. But in year 2, the turnaround from year 1 was incredibly impressive in my mind. Learning the players, getting them to understand their assignments, the development of the defense overall, developing a staff behind it that has been top notch. Minus LJ to an extent. We discussed that a little bit earlier, but I like Jim Knowles, and I think this defense still has plenty of room to grow, and I think he's going to get us there.
Yeah, I have Knowles here as well. I think he's got tremendous, um, tremendous sense as a coach. I think he is, as Aaron said, lacks a little aggressiveness, and seems like the last couple of years he's gone to the Ryan Day school of I poop my pants when the big game comes around. But you know, if they can get this together, I think Knowles is going to be a big reason why. I think he has the potential. We've seen him grow everywhere he's been. Once he gets into year 2 and 3, his teams have tremendous success. Um, so I've got Knowles in at number 3 as well.
Number 3 for me is actually Tim Walton. Um, I can't put him over Brian Hartline yet because he hasn't done it as long as Brian Hartline, and I'll let you guys know why I have Jim Knowles ahead of Tim Walton when I get to that. So I've got Tim Walton at number 3 here for me.
Because he's the boss, Eric. Because he's the boss.
I'm shocked.
He's the goat, is what they've been calling him. Yeah.
Let's not get
I
carried away. Like I say, still crap in the bed in the big games, kind of like Ryan Day does.
I blame that on his time in the Big
You
12.
talking about Jim Knowles?
I am.
Okay.
The guy whose defensive backs fall on their butts when they're trying to cover Michigan receivers.
Yeah. That was completely Jim Knowles' fault, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, when you wear that hat, man, you got to take responsibility for it.
Number 2, Jr. Are we at number 2? Yeah, number 2.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, you're going to hate this, Eric, and that's okay. And I think that everybody else will probably have him at number 1, and I get it, but Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline's my number 2 for the sole reason that we would have so much more of a dynamic running game if our wide receivers would just block. If they would just block. And it's so infuriating when people get on the broadcast and say, "Oh yeah, you got to block if you're going to be a wide receiver for Ryan or Brian Hartline." No, you don't. You come in from South Florida and you go run some routes, you catch some balls, and you're speedy, which is fantastic. That's what you want your wide receivers to do. But even in that Mizzou game, there were runs where Trey would have took it to the house if the guys were blocking, and they weren't. So Brian Hartline, you need to get you guys in order and make them block. And they don't
Yeah.
rotate. That's the other
Yeah,
one. Sorry.
I was gonna say I actually agree. Brian Hartline at number 2 for me, and it's because they don't finish their blocks. Sometimes they don't even initiate them. They just kind of stand in their way. Sometimes that's enough. Most times it is not. The other problem that I saw, and I saw it in the Michigan game, and I saw it in the bowl game, well, not the bowl game, but mainly the Michigan game, and then there was maybe a couple other times throughout the season I saw it out of Marvin Harrison, but he didn't come back he doesn't fight for those balls.
Yes.
There was an interception early in the Michigan game that should not have been an interception if Marvin
Yeah.
had fought for the ball. Sometimes as a wide receiver, you have to play defense a little bit. He didn't do that. He said, "Hey, I'm here to catch the ball. I don't play defense." How far
Yeah.
is that going to get you in the NFL, bud?
Even if it means taking a penalty, you get yourself in there and you break up that interception.
Your job, first and foremost, routes, catching the ball. Your second job, not letting the defense catch the ball at whatever cost, like Chris was saying. Marvin didn't do that. And I've seen other receivers do the same.
Yeah, guys, I actually agree with the two of you. I've got Hartline at 1B as well. I just feel like I think he's a tremendous recruiter, and we give him a lot of credit for that. Um, I think that we saw a failed experiment as a play caller in the second half of that Indiana game. Clearly, somebody that Ryan Day does not have confidence in yet as a play caller. He does develop his receivers well. as far as their catching ability goes. But like you said, there's the little intangibles, the blocking, the sometimes becoming a defensive player where I think our receivers lack. Um, so I've got him at the we'll call it 2, but I think it's still a 1B position.
Brian Hartline, number 2 for me as well, which means number 1, JR, for you is?
Tim Walton, goated, baby, goated. Yeah, I just you give that everything that improved this year. I put so much of that on the secondary and the recruiting this year and everything. I don't. Tim Walton's mine. I know I can probably have reasons for other people in front of him, but I love me some Walton right now.
If Tim Walton were to lose these 2 top recruits that he has for the 2025 class, would that change your mind?
Well, yeah. I mean, but if Brian Hartline lost the 2 guys last year, probably changed my mind about him too.
Okay.
Fair assessment. Yeah, I'm going Tim Walton as well. And it's just because the coaching. Look at the coaching. The recruiting is a secondary part of this, but the difference in the secondary play from the year before last up until this point has been drastically better. I can't speak on that enough. And then you throw in recruiting on top of it, and I have to give him that spot. Have to.
Yeah, the recruiting's been really good. The obviously going out, bringing in Caleb Downs was huge. Huge. Can't say enough about that and the impact that's going to have on the defense this year. And let's not forget the defensive backs that came back to play. Come on, Denzel was a guaranteed first round pick. He came back to play in this defense for Tim Walton and for Jim Knowles.
And some money.
And a lot of money, and no doubt about it. But you know
I just hope he did his taxes. That's all.
And then, obviously, like Aaron said, the defensive back play last year was phenomenal. The intensity has gone up, tenfold since that guy's been in the locker room. So I really think, yeah, he's got to be number 1 for me.
Number 1 for me is actually Jim Knowles.
Okay.
And yeah, I know that that's different than what you guys have, but can I just remind you guys of where this defense was 2 years ago?
Please don't.
Oh, it's sucked under
defense
Kerry Combs, no doubt about it.
But the
What
defense he was
defense?
coaching last year or 2 years ago was the same one he was coaching though, right?
No, 2 years ago before he arrived as defensive coordinator.
Kerry Combs.
Kerry Combs'
Combs.
But
defense.
the defense before that too, right?
Well,
What do you mean?
The defense before this past year, that was Jim Knowles too, right?
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah, when they gave up 40 plus points to Michigan and basically lost us the game against Georgia.
Oh my gosh. Guys, there were so many things beyond that. Okay? So many things beyond that.
Oh, here it
I'm
comes.
telling
Let's
you,
hear him
right-
sympathize. Georgia was all because Marvin Harrison went down.
No, it wasn't, but that was a part of it, yeah. To deny it was a part of that is crazy. To deny what Ryan Day didn't do offensively on that last
You got
job was
that
not
right.
Jim Knowles'
You
fault.
got that right.
You cannot put that entire loss on Jim Knowles. I think where we are at defensively, the Silver Bullets are back, boys. They're back. Accept it. Embrace it. And Jim Knowles is a freaking I think he's the best defensive coordinator we've had since probably who? I mean, I've been racking my brain trying to think.
You have to go back under Tress, probably.
Halfway.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Hafley was pretty solid.
Ah,
That was a good
Oh,
defense, man.
Yeah, for
he
one season,
inherited
he was
some
the co-defensive
studs.
coordinator.
But didn't Knowles inherit
Co-defensive
some
coordinator
studs
for
too?
1 year.
Not really.
Not enough.
Oh, 5 stars on the defensive end.
Different
Denzel
level,
Burke,
brother.
who was a
Different-
star the freshman year.
JR,
Davidson
no
and
offense, but
Ginosin,
you and I
who
could have
started
been
as a freshman
J-
in the
JR,
SEC. Like,
JR, you and I could have been the defensive line coach when Chase Young was on the line, dude.
Or the Bosa's.
See quarterback, go get quarterback. Okay, like
I'll
that
give you
didn't
that.
take.
Yes.
It didn't take some kind of. Jim Knowles has had to do some scheming and working around some things the last couple of years, and I think he's done a pretty doggone good job. Now, I'm not saying our defense has been, putrid, as far as talent, it's not been. But I do believe Jim Knowles has brought out a better play in this defense than what we have seen, gosh, in a long time at Ohio State. And if this defense is what we all think it can be in 2024, there is no reason to believe that we aren't national championship caliber team this year if the offense can just put up enough points in those big games. Um, let's look at what we got here. Derek Vance, great depth at quarterback too. Brian Oberst, Chris, how many more TTUN players do you want to join our team? I poking the bear there. If Marvin doesn't get injured, we win against Georgia by at least 10.
Maybe
Um,
Yeah,
Taraka, Fickle
maybe
Ash
at
combo
best.
was solid.
it was.
Yeah, it was solid. Yeah, I agree
It
with
was all
that,
right.
but it wasn't like this. I think
No.
this is even better.
Yeah.
But Knowles is doing it by himself.
Is he
Yeah,
though?
as
Is
defensive
he?
coordinator, yeah, he has no.
Dude, that's a
The-
staff by its
Yeah,
like
yeah.
But I think
That's my
he's
thing is like is
You
I
you
see
take Tim Walton
everybody
out of
giving
there.
Knowles credit, but like I give so much more credit to Tim Walton than I think other people are, which is fine. Like I get that, but man, I'm giving a lot of credit to Tim Walton in my mind for
Yeah, you
changing
take
the
Tim Walton
secondary
out
the
of
way he
there,
did.
and we got a Kerry Combs defensive backfield that's leaking like a sieve.
$20 holla. We got a $20 super chat from Chris Smith. Chris says, loving this conversation. Bottom line is we have some talented coaches and some that have something to prove. Great show, fellas. Chris Smith, thank you very
thank you.
much. And because of that $20 holler, OH!
Oh,
Io.
Awesome. Frank says, to clarify, he meant scheme wise. I agree. I
Yes.
agree with you, Frank, on
Yeah.
that. Let me finish off some of this discussion we just had because this is an interesting comment. I agree with you, Brian. Tim Walton makes Knowles a better defensive coordinator. That would be true for whatever defensive coordinator you're talking about. Tim Walton would make that person a better defensive coordinator. Tim Walton is definitely the GOAT currently when it comes to recruiting and cornerback development. But he is not. He is not the linebackers coach, and he is not the defensive line coach. While I believe when you look at the breakdown of his importance, Jim Knowles is overseeing everything on that defense. So to break it down for you guys, at number 10 we had Keenan Bailey. This is an average of everything taken into account. Number 10, we had Keenan Bailey. Number 9, Matt Guerreri. Number 8, Justin Fry. Number 7, James Laurinaitis. Number 6, Larry Johnson. Number 5, Tony Alford. Number 4, Chip Kelly. Number 3, Jim Knowles. Number 2, Brian Hartline. And number 1, Tim Walton. That is the average that we have on the OHIO podcast for 10 through 1 in the Ryan Day's assistant coaches.
make,
Fun little
make
game
sure to
here.
tweet that out to Tim Walton. We'll get some recognition for that one.
Yeah, Tim Walton, he reposted liked and then shared a tweet of mine. So Tim Walton is fan. He's a fan of our program. How cool is that?